All right, 6 o'clock. I will call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, proud, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, at this time, I'll ask for a roll call.
Commissioner Kingman.
I am here.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox.
Here.
Commissioner Settlemeyer.
Here.
Chair Robinson.
Here.
Commissioner Riles.
Present.
Commissioner Litz has an excused absence, and Commissioner Winterode. Here.
All right, has everyone had a chance to peruse the minutes that were included in the agenda packet? Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Very good. Moving on to business from the public. I can guess. All right, Lisa, if you would approach.
Thank you very much. Lisa Grotto, Albany Downtown Association Executive Director, and I just have a few little updates for you. Our newsletter is not quite done this evening, but I do have a draft, so I'm going to give you some sneak peeks. First off, I want to talk about our 2024 Excellence in Downtown Albany Awards. They were held on Monday night with an attendance of 90 people, including many city partners, and we were very excited about that. Some of the awards that we gave out were Creative Placemaking, which went to the Albany Chamber of Commerce mural. The Outstanding Promotional Event went to Antiques in the Streets and Classic Car Show. The Good Neighbor Award, which is for going above and beyond and helping your fellow business person and other businesses, is the Good Neighbor Award going to Stay a While Vintage Mercantile in the old Natty Dresser space. The Open Door Award, which goes to nominees representing models of inclusive practices that build community through the creation of safe identity or affinity spaces, projects, programs, or events in this category, and increase community inclusivity. This had lots of nominees and went to Albany Pride. The Standout Volunteer went to Beth Walker. The Best Building Renovation, so this is for what was done with the building, went to, we had 3 nominees. We had the Greyhound Tavern, as well as the 2 properties that are make up the corner of Ferry and Second. So the one's occupied by First and Second's Unique Boutique, and the other one is the Precision Golf. That went to the 3rd one, which was to go to the Opera House. I'm sorry, I mixed that up. We'll save that. So anyway, those 3 were historic preservation. So that was exciting. The Opera House was recognized, and that's the Glorietta Bay team of the Scott Letman properties. That was to do with the restoration, but mostly because of the economic improvement aspect, which is a lot of what the downtown is about. The building added 2 short-term rental units, 16 apartments with over 20 occupants who eat, shop, and play in downtown. The non-historic preservation, which is what I started to talk about, we had numerous nominees, and that went to the Greyhound Tavern building, which brought in not just themselves as a tenant, as a restaurant, but also brought a new suite tenant in Sugar Jay's Ice Cream Workshop. We haven't had a true ice cream shop downtown for years. There was over $100,000 investment in the building, lots of contractors and vendors involved, and of that money, some came from our Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant. And the building added 29 jobs between the 2 companies and opportunities for musicians, dance instructors, food suppliers, and janitorial services. The leadership on Main went to Taylor Rosa of Veritone Architecture. The standout community partner, we didn't identify one because we have so many great partners between the Visitors Association, the Eagles, the Regional Museum, the Carousel, and others, including the city and the Chamber of Commerce. The new business of the year went to Camille's Bistro. Excited to have her model downtown, and if you don't know, she's added dinner to her breakfast and lunch opportunities. And the business of the year went to Mary Me Bridal for all that she does with her business and in the community. So that gives you a quick update. So we're excited. Some buildings got finished and they had to be completed by June 30th to qualify. And then just a quick fun update. Trick-or-treat's coming up downtown, so we'll have lots of kiddos for that. There'll be a event at the Carousel, and sad to say, or happy for them, the Monteith House events, including the Ghost Walking Tours, Trolley of Terror, and the VIP Paranormal Ghost Hunting Experience have all sold out. So go to the Carousel or wander around downtown. So that's all the great stuff that's going on downtown. We're excited. The hanging baskets went up, they came down, and we are off into fall, and you'll soon see lights around the trees, followed by snowflakes and other fun winter stuff. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online? Looking good? Okay. Moving right on to scheduled business. We have HI-18-24. An application for historic review of exterior alterations for exterior lighting, removal of rear stairway, change to doors, the addition of mechanical units and ADA improvements, and historic review of use of substitute materials for replacement of exterior windows. Have all commissioners received a copy of the agenda packet materials, and are you all familiar with them?
Yes.
Okay, I call to order this quasi-judicial public hearing at 6:07 p.m. If you wish to testify, there were 3 options available, which were described on the commission agenda. Do any members wish to declare a conflict of interest? Do any members wish to report any ex parte contact?
I think this is ex parte. So just a few years ago, probably 3 years ago, I worked for the owner doing a bit of a survey of the building. I spent a lot of time in the building, got to know it very well. But I don't think as I'm retired and no longer working for that client, I don't see where it's a conflict of interest. But I'm very aware of that building inside and out.
Do any members wish to report a site visit?
So I walked around it.
I've also walked around it.
I walk by this building every morning on my way to Margin's Coffee.
Same here. I walked around that building and looked at it many times. Do any members wish to abstain from participating in the proceedings? Does anyone wish to challenge the participation of any commission member in this hearing and decision? If attending virtually, please turn on your camera and raise your hand to be called upon, or if attending by phone, please unmute yourself and state your name so you can be called upon. At this time, I call for a reading of the meeting procedures.
Good evening. For those wishing to testify, please be aware that you must raise an issue with enough detail to afford the commission and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue if you later want to raise that issue on appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the approval standards staff will describe or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code which you believe to apply to the decision. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the commission may allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court.
At this time, I call for the staff report.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. Alyssa Schrems with the City of Albany Planning Department. So this is a review for HI 1824, which is a historic review of exterior alterations and use of substitute materials for the old federal building. So as always, this is a type 3 quasi-judicial review process. Notice was mailed for this meeting on September 11th, and on September 20th, the property was posted. And today we have the ability to make a decision. So this is the building on Google Maps in 2023. You'll have noticed if you went by lately, there is a paint job on it now. So it does look slightly different, but this is a majority of what the building looks like. So today we've got exterior alterations using the criteria in 7.120 through 7.165. And then historic review of use of substitute materials, which is 7.170 through 7.210. For the substitute materials, this is mainly just for the windows that are on the structure, and I believe the applicant's got a better representation of which ones are getting replaced. The other things are all going to fall into the category of exterior alterations, and there is a big old list of things that are getting updated and changed, but they are primarily doors, windows, some ADA changes, mechanical units, and things like that. So we do have 5 options. So approve the request as proposed, approve the request with conditions of approval, and then options 3 and 4 are approve one but not the other, and then option 5 is deny the request. Staff does recommend option 2. Does anybody have any questions?
Now it's on. So there's work going on the property right now, is right? Because the street's shut down and Monday there was work going. So how does that, so are they working without a permit, or do they have a permit for what they're doing? Is the permit split? Do they need historic review before they can start work?
Yeah, so to answer your question, we did have a review back in 2022, and that's what a lot of the current work is about, is kind of gearing up and doing that work that was reviewed in 2022.
Yeah.
This kind of folds into that, but I don't believe they've actually started any of the changes that are proposed with this application. They're primarily looking at that other work, which was fairly substantial. There is kind of a list in the staff report of everything that we reviewed with that one.
Okay.
I can't remember it all off the top of my head, but it was quite a lot of work. And then things like painting and such is all stuff that we don't do a review for.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other clarifying questions for the staff report? Richard, maybe? I couldn't tell. I thought maybe you had something. Okay. We will now take testimony from the applicant. Would you please state your name, address, and make any comments you have for the commission?
Okay. Good evening. My name is Laura LaRock with Udell Engineering and Land Surveying. I'm the applicant's representative this evening. So I will give a brief overview of the proposal and provide a little bit of history context, maybe new information for some of these commissioners here that weren't a part of the original review process. So the Albany Federal Building is undergoing a total renovation inside and outside of the building. It has a special tax credit preservation plan that was reviewed by Lynn County. And it also has a Part 2 historic tax credit approval by the State and National Park Service. Those reviews occurred around 2022, and most of the projects were included in that original proposal. Since that time, a lot of interior demolition has occurred. A couple changes with what the intended use or internal makeup of the building was going to consist of have changed, and some of those changes necessitate some changes on the exterior of the building too, to bring lighting into interior units. And then just things that get discovered anytime you do work on a historic building, you don't quite know what you're getting into until you start moving things around and really getting involved in the reconstruction. So before you today, I have a couple just slides I'll go through. There are quite a few items that are included, but you can kind of lump those into just a couple different categories, and I'll run through those now. If you wouldn't mind just advancing the slide. So the first set of approval that is being requested is for exterior lighting. Exterior lighting was not considered in the original proposal. These are kind of the finer details that are being considered at this point in time. The lighting that you'll see on the PowerPoint moving from top to bottom, the first one are ground-mounted, essentially spotlights that will spot towards the building, so illuminate the building without actually being affixed to it. There, in the middle of the PowerPoint slide is a lamp style lighting. These will be installed as proposed on landscaping bays that exist on both sides of the main staircase that come into the building. So the existing planters will be filled with concrete and allow support for these style of lights to be installed. The one on the lower of the PowerPoint is a ceiling mounted lighting for the kind of exterior main promenade of the building. These will not be visible from the street. These will actually be inset to ceiling material. And from the exterior of the building, you won't even be able to see those, but it will allow illumination to occur on the front of the building. On the next slide, you'll see two other style of lights that are proposed. These are called utility lights or kind of a mounted illumination. These will be mounted towards entrance stairways. There's a few places around the building that these have been identified. These will be affixed to the building. And how those are attached are included in the application proposal, but the architect has considered how to do that least impactful to the historic features of the building. The last style of lighting that's proposed is an LED style. It's a flexible, bendable material, and that will be around the top perimeter of the building. Again, this will not be visible other than just the illumination that it gives off, and that will just add lighting to enhance some of the architectural features around the top of the building. On the next slide, moving on, I'm talking about different window alterations that are proposed. Along the grade level of the building are kind of a mix of window openings. So there is a full basement within this building, for those of you that have not been in there. At one time, these windows that were installed at ground level were quite a bit deeper. Those wells have been infilled with either concrete blocks or with parking lot and some other improvements that have occurred and essentially blocked in with no longer providing any natural light into the bottom of the building. The bottom of the building will have some residential components to it, so the owner would like to add some natural lighting to those spaces. So some of those existing window openings that were bricked in with CMU blocking will be removed. You can see what that removal looks like on the right-hand side. Once those blocks were removed, we found that some of the original window material was remaining, but it was not in very good shape. And due to the proximity of the ground, you're going to have a lot of moisture in those areas. So the owner is proposing to open up the windows that are blocked in, replace them with it's a resin composite material window. So it's a wood fiber with resin that's really weather resistant and that can be painted. It does not have any grain to it. So those would be installed. The style and the size would be the same of what would have been there originally. To prevent any damage to occur to those windows, proposing to reinstall metal bars on the windows so that there's no interface with kind of the public right-of-ways that are in the area there. And we can move forward to the next slide. The main front entrance had an added feature to it that occurred in the 1960s. It's exterior vestibule. Essentially what it does is it allows doorways and entrance into the building without having kind of the weather flow in behind you. So it acts like a wind block to the main building. So it helps with the heating and cooling of the building. So certain window archways and doorways have been infilled with an aluminum and storefront window, materials there. So it is an aluminum material now. In the previous proposal, we had proposed a just different color, kind of a bronze color. In this proposal, still deciding about what color will look best with the building. So we're including just the color that is shown, what installed now, but all new material. So the look of it would not change significantly, but it would change to a tempered style window if it was broken. wouldn't cause any damage. And then also upgrading the aluminum because it is showing its age. A few new window openings are proposed. So on the back of the building, there's a one-story addition that was added around the 60s. This portion of the building will again have a residential component to it and looking to add natural light into those units. So on the south or alley side elevation, proposing to add 3 windows to allow lighting into a bedroom and living space that's on the other side of that wall. And on the west side, adding 2 other windows. And those we're not trying to replicate anything or bring a character style to that portion of the building. So they're intended to be very simple in design and be kind of an aluminum material with just a solid window pane. I've presented a lot already. I might take a breath and just check in with you guys. Do you guys have any questions about what's proposed in terms of windows or lightings that I can answer before I move along in presentation?
Just to clarify, as far as the vestibule goes, we're just revising the color of the storefront glass. Okay.
Yeah. And then in this application, it does provide more detail about profiles of what that material would look like. And it's just a little bit further along in design. So it's providing additional information.
Do we want to go into some of the questions about the windows now, or should we have the questions kind of at the end of the presentation?
Your choice. Let's talk about windows now. Why it's fresh and we have some photos up.
There's enough meat here. I personally am okay with breaking it up into the sections because there's quite a bit we need to cover. And I think it's reasonable to assume that some of our questions or concerns may be forgotten by the time we get to the end of this presentation. So Cameron, if you have some window questions, we would start with you.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a couple questions dealing with the basement windows, and in particular on the back side, window 2-06, which is, I believe, kind of the last of the top arched full-length windows left on the back side. 206, was there any evidence that this window was beyond repair?
So when you're referring to 206, I believe you're referring to the window that's just to the, it's on the south elevation. And it's going to be
Correct.
on this right side or the farthest east side. That window, if you would have walked by the building, was at one time covered completely with a plywood material. And then the window itself was removed at some point in time so that when demolition was occurring, they could use that as a chute. So is that the right window, Cameron?
Yeah, so when was that window removed?
The window has not been disposed of, but it was taken out. So you could assess it and also so you can remove material from the building without damaging it.
Okay, but it's not going to be put back in.
Now on that particular one, that window, it bisects 2 levels, the ground floor and the second floor. So if it was to stay where it was, how the interior unit makeup is configured, it would provide an opening to an area in the building. I believe it was a restroom that you really wouldn't want that natural light into. And there wasn't a good way, as I understand, to do fire separation between the floors if the window was to remain as it is constructed originally. So the proposal is to remove that window in its entirety. The lower portion for the ground floor would be replaced with a replacement window, and the upper floor would be infilled, similar to how the other windows were infilled before this project started.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused how that meets the design requirements for either substitute materials or exterior modification, though, in the development code.
Yeah, so this window is similar to the rest. There was a long period of deferred maintenance to the entire building, a long period of time where it sat idle. So maintenance did not occur to any of these. All these windows on the entire building will be removed at some point, and they'll be taken apart, cleaned, reassembled as they can. On this particular one, it was only covered up with a piece of plywood, so there was still moisture and items reaching that window. So it is not in very good shape currently. The proposal for the substitute material, it's cost prohibitive to reconstruct the window in that area. And in this case, it's just not functional for the interior design that's going to occur. So what's being proposed instead is to replicate what that original window would have looked like. The material will differ because, again, we're not trying to match what's historically there. You're just making sure that it's consistent and doesn't create an eyesore or draw attention away from what the original pieces are. And how it will be infilled will allow the interior units to function.
Do you have any photo evidence, material evidence that this window was beyond repair, other than it was covered with plywood?
Yeah, there's a number of photos. I don't have them tonight to present to you, though. I don't have it included in the packet.
Okay.
Photos could be provided.
So I actually, as I revealed before the thing, spent an excessive amount of time in the building. And perhaps you are aware of this, Cameron. So the city of Albany bought this as a courthouse in the early 60s from the U.S. Post Office. That building you see in front, the block building that was added at that time, covered the sorting room. And so those big, tall windows were a two-story space that was a beautiful south-facing sorting room for the post office for many years. The city of Albany did some pretty heinous, what they did in there, and I can't remember anything that they did that was good. But in particular, those south windows, because of what work that was done by the city of Albany at the time, suffered extensive damage and were also south-facing. So they were really problematic. And even back years ago, I realized that those windows were going to be difficult to maintain. Or to restore. And there's also some other windows, the upper ones with the diagonal panes in them, that some of them were missing and were found up in the attic, and they were in great shape. And I'm glad to see that those are all being put back in because the windows in this building are quite special and quite old. Unfortunately, the ones that let light down into that giant sorting room had various damage when they inserted another floor for a courthouse behind there, and they attached it across those windows and did some rather severe structural damage. I'm glad that they're keeping the ones that they're keeping because it is south-facing, and that was a real difficult part of that. I'm sure you have the photographic evidence, but I've seen it myself. And most of the windows in there are pretty good, but that south side got hammered by not just the elements, but by what the city did when connecting the new building into the existing building and adding a floor behind it that never existed, basically affecting every one of those windows across there.
Okay. And then I had a similar question about the basement windows. I know some of them were gone. Some of them were hidden by concrete blocks. When I did a walk around before the meeting, I saw two that hadn't been pulled yet. One I couldn't really tell the shape of, just looking from the sidewalk. The other one to me looked like it was still in really, really good shape. And again, I'm not inspecting this up close, but to make a determination, it needs to be beyond repair. And I haven't seen any photos or condition reports for the existing basement windows.
Beyond repair? Is that right?
The
not quite
code
right, is
is windows or trim is so deteriorated or damaged that it cannot be repaired.
So
is
maybe I could-
7.200 section 1.
Maybe clarification for me, the basement windows are going to be expanded from what they currently are anyway?
So there's several basement windows. A number of them have been blocked in with concrete block, CMU block. All of that blocking has been removed now to investigate the condition and what existed behind those. Some windows were discovered in that area, but there was not any sort of weather protection that was put in there when the blocking occurred. So you're going through periods where weather fluctuates and is creating moisture in these wells that exist, and they're deteriorating those windows in that area. The windows that were there originally would have went further subgrade. They're not proposed to be open to the full extent. We're opening what exists there to grade where the parking lot meets these windows, and then to replace those with a material that will be more weather resistant.
Just below grade.
It might be slightly below grade, but we're not proposing any window wells at this location.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Cameron, did you have some?
Yeah, I was just, so can you clarify the basement windows that are there currently? Do you know when they were installed? Because I think you said that they were originally below grade windows there. Is that correct?
So on these windows, they vary. I mean, this building has gone through a massive restoration before. So a lot of the basement grade windows are a steel frame. There was a few windows, I think just 2 on the east side of the building that were blocked in, that were discovered that were a wood material. But many of them that are still in existence are a steel frame with steel bars over the top, especially on the west, north, and south elevations.
The city of Albany put a jail down there, and it was a police department. And so that ground floor, and I don't remember those windows, I'll be honest about it. I don't remember the condition, and a lot of them were blocked over, and I didn't know they were back there.
I'm sorry, but Bill, you're providing testimony and you're serving on the hearings board on the landmarks at the same time.
Okay, so I'm confused because I said I'd seen the building before. I had to disclose that I have knowledge of it. And so I've disclosed that I have this knowledge. So I'm not supposed to tell you the knowledge that I have. And why is that?
So, here we have our applicant, and then you play a neutral role on the Landmarks Commission. If you wanted to testify, you might want to step down and be able to do so as a member of the audience.
So I'm not testifying yay or nay or positive or negative. I think if you review what I said, I'm just saying what I saw and whether or not, and my motion to Cameron is that I was quoting the code, and I think he left out the part of actually being capable of or economically viable to bring things back to repair. So I don't have an opinion on either way. I just know that I've seen them, and if you walk by on the street, you've seen them. So you can make a judgment based on what you see. But as far as I don't agree that what I said was one way or the other on it.
So to kind of pick up, you do have elevation plans. So if you look at the architectural plans in there, you have a sheet that starts HR2. All the basement windows or at-grade windows, they're depicted in their current configuration. So starting on HR2, on the very top one is the north or street-facing side. You'll see that those are all blocked in. It shows partial elevation for the south. There is one basement window that's on the south or alley side. That one's blocked in as well. On the next sheet on HR3, you're looking at, on the top, you're looking at the west elevation, about Albany. You'll see that there's 2 windows that exist. These are a metal frame with metal bars. And then the lower picture shows the east elevation. You'll see that window D was found existing. It was covered with a vent type metal vent, and the other windows were bricked in. They have since, bricks have been removed to discover what was underneath there. And if you flip to, let's see, slide 4. I'm seeing my page 4. So maybe up one, Alyssa. Okay, maybe up 2. There we go. So the picture on the right, that's showing the east elevation. That's the elevation that is right at the parking lot. You'll see that some are right at grade where the parking lot or asphalt meets the building. Some are slightly elevated. Those are the ones that are proposed to be open. And in those opening, we're proposing a substitute replacement material to be installed in those window openings with bars on the outside so they don't get damaged by vehicles or.
In regard to the bars, did you say you were going to replace?
Replace all the bars, yeah.
So they will have bars on them?
They will, yeah. Any basement or at-grade window is proposed to be replaced with protective bars. And that just serves that people don't kick them when they're walking down the street or things get thrown in them from a vehicle parking lot.
So, go ahead.
Question. Are there windows on any elevation that are being preserved?
Most of the windows on the building are being preserved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you identify then which ones are being replaced with substitute materials?
Yes, so you have the elevation plan, or the architectural drawings, and they'll show window openings that are in their existing configuration. And then we'll have there's renderings that show what's going to be replaced. The upper floor for the Union Jack or the diamond-shaped windows, those were reviewed in a previous application. Those are going to be removed, refurbished, and replaced. On the main or first floor,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. They're going to be replaced.
The existing windows that are original, they were approved in a previous application, so they're not under this decision, but they are going to be removed, refurbished, and then replaced.
Refurbished.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Reinstalled.
Yeah, reinstalled. Yeah. Same with the first floor. All of those windows will be reconditioned and put back in place.
Okay.
On the back of the building, so the alley side, so this is kind of the piece of this application here. I'm going to flip to the page. So if you get to HR2, the lower photo shows the alley or south-facing elevation. You'll see a number of those windows in their current state. So along the top, there are some panels that look like they could have been window openings. And demolition had occurred to investigate if there was anything behind there. There wasn't at any point in time. There's no evidence that windows were in that upper portion. In the main portion of the building, and those are labeled as 025, 2-4, we'll leave out the zeros, 2-5. Those 2-5 windows, those were infilled. They were parged, or they had a material that coated over the top of those. When the material was removed in those window openings, original windows were discovered in that area. And you'll see in this application, I don't misspeak. Oh, excuse me. No, those were just infilled windows. So the openings were there, the windows were gone. So those are proposed to be replaced with a material. The question I think Cameron is questioning is it's labeled as 2-20. That is one that is in existence. It was covered over with plywood material. And that one's proposed to be replaced. So of all the windows on the building, there are about 2 basement windows, and that one on the south elevation is proposed to be replaced and not refurbished and restored.
Thank you very much.
So now I'm a little confused. So as far as what I understand from what you said is that everything sort of above ground level or the basement level is being preserved, whether taken out and replaced or preserved in place. And then there's addition of some new windows in the 60s concrete block building. And then on the ground basement floor, are all of them being replaced or just a few of them, given what you found? I mean, I'm just a little confused on which ones are being replaced or if all of those are being replaced.
Okay, so in the application narrative, under the second section, it lists what's being replaced for windows. I'll run through them briefly, if that's okay. So basement windows, all of them are proposed to be removed and replaced with a substitute material. What's being removed is often just a steel frame, non-original window. It's probably placed in the 60s when the remodel occurred. And they have some existing metal bars on 2 or 3 of the windows. Those are supposed to be removed and replaced because some of those have rust or unsightly or will be damaged, just to replace what's behind those. On the rear elevation of the building, that's the most substantive part of this application. There is an E window type that's proposed. In the proposal, 1 window is to be removed. So if you're standing at the back of the building, it would be the one on the right, just above where the ADA ramp is located. If you're looking at the PDF here, it's just to the right of where that red circle is. So it was covered previously, it's been removed, so the demolition chute could be applied, so things could be coming out of that area from the upper floor. That one's proposed to be installed with a new window material. It won't entirely fill the original window opening. The top portion of that would be infilled. The purpose for that infill is that the design of the interior of the building, it's not an area where you want visibility to occur. The lower portion is going to be a residential unit, likely some living space. So that portion of the window is proposed to be reinstalled. The purpose for having those 2 differences from the top to the bottom is that there is a story difference. There's an upper story and a lower story, and where that flooring material meets the window, there's not a great way or a way that we're aware of that you can fireproof those safely. So by reconstructing that, we can meet fire code and also provide visibility where you want it and where you don't need it for the interior of those units. And then there are some existing blocking on window openings. So there's some window openings that were blocked up over time in a previous remodel, and the proposal is to remove that infill blocking and expose some windows there. Where those windows are found to be in place, they'll just be restored and left intact. And those windows, if you're looking at the PDF, it's the one just above the 1-story structure. So you're just seeing the very top part of those windows. Those were bricked in, covered up. When the bricks were removed, discovered original windows, those will be preserved in place. And then there's a proposal to add 5 new windows on the 1-story addition, mostly non-historic portion of the building. That clarify?
So I think I understand. Can I go through it one more time? So the ground floor, they were replaced in the 60s with the basement floor with steel sash. And those are going to be replaced because they're still trouble being below grade. Then you have the one that's the kind of 2-part window on the alley, which part of it's going to be covered and part of it's going to be replaced. And then everything else pretty much is going to be restored.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to check this side of the room. Richard or Mason, any questions? Okay. Cameron?
The only other one I had was about the lighting, because you covered that briefly as well.
I have another question about the windows. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait.
Cameron, sorry, before you mentioned a couple of times that the windows needed to be a certain way, either infilled or not restored in the openings because of the proposed use. So one of the standards is that the new use doesn't require changes to the building that are not consistent with the other standards. So the application indicates it's a boutique hotel or other uses. I mean, is it being designed and built as a hotel? Or is it apartments? Or is it commercial?
Yeah, so
I don't want
the use
there
of
to
the
be
building
permanent changes made for a use that then isn't going to come through, which could then require other changes, for a different use. But that is one of the standards we need to look at.
Yeah. I guess the simplest way to answer the question is that the building has been altered. So the building at one time did not have 2 floors. In the 60s, it was modeled as a city hall. There was a council chamber that was added to the rear of this building. The council chamber added a flooring structure to the building.
In the interior, we're talking
Interior.
about, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are a number of windows, so 1, 2, 3, 4 windows that were infilled completely because they span the flooring structure of the building from the first to second floor. There's a fifth window that was covered up. It was not infilled with brick. It was just covered up in a different way. It has the same issue. There was a flooring structure that was added. This building's been existing since the 1960s with 2 floors.
Okay.
Just with modern building codes, the challenge is, how do you do your interior renovations and be, I guess, least impactful to the exterior of the building? And what we found is that there was 4 that were covered. Those 4 will be uncovered with the original windows preserved and saved in that building. There's going to be one window that would be altered. That window, again, there was no thoughtful way to preserve that window. It was just covered with a piece of plywood. So there was no weather stripping, no way to prevent moisture from being between the plywood and the original window. So the shape of it is heavily deteriorated. On this one, it was found that while most of the windows could be preserved and restored, there's certain areas in this particular window that cannot, and that is proposed to be replaced with a different material.
Okay, thank you. So you think the changes in terms of accommodating the use are minimal? Or they're not, they wouldn't?
Yeah, I think you can rattle off just a few changes to the exterior of the building to accommodate the new use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And I will add that these proposals that are before you are vetted. I mean, this is 3 rounds of review that we do this building. We did it with Lynn County, State Historic Preservation Office, also the National Park Service.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask is if you're going to have to take with the changes that are here also back to them. You've already done that then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So before doing any change,
Oh, okay.
we work with our State Historic Preservation rep. We run by a number of different proposals. These are the best one that we're presenting for you tonight. It's being reviewed concurrently with the state and the National Park Service as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So it will be very vetted. And these are proposals that we've had, I think, 3 different architects take a look at this building as well. So there's been a lot of kind of thought and ideas vetted too about different ideas and solutions.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Cameron had a question about lighting. Do you want to go back to that, Cameron?
Yeah, I had one question about lighting, and that was the LED lighting along the top. I wasn't sure exactly where that placement would be, and whether that's going to be visible from the public sidewalk or not.
Let me pull up the elevation plan to refer to. The quick answer is it's not going to be visible other than the illumination that it creates. So it's a very thin material. So there was an attachment to it. It provides full specs on that style of lighting. But I guess the quick, simple way to describe it, it's kind of like a plastic material. It's very thin, it's very flexible, pliable, and it will be inset into an area of the building, and on the exterior, it would be covered by building material. It's meant to highlight an architectural feature of the building through lighting, and it'll be around the exterior top of the building, around the cornice. Location is noted on elevation plan. If you want that sighting, I can give that to you too.
Is that on underneath the cornice or up on top of the cornice?
It's shown on top on the elevation plan. It's shown as L3, and you can see it on HR4.
Okay, so it's, yeah, I couldn't tell from that drawing. So it's on the top of the cornice and it'll be set back far enough that you won't see the aluminum rail from the street or sidewalk?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do we have any further questions about windows or lighting? Okay, if you would proceed.
Thank you. And thanks for bearing with me. I know it's a long presentation tonight. So I'm going to jump through doors quickly here, no pun intended. So on the slide, Alyssa has it pulled up. On the top image, you have a better, this is taken from the architectural drawings. There used to be a fire escape, so there used to be a door, which would have came off the second floor. They would have come out to the one-story addition on the rear and then exited through a fire escape. That fire escape is no longer needed. There's plenty of exits to the building. There is an additional fire escape on the building already that's going to be preserved and maintained. But this one in particular is going to come off, and therefore there's not a need for a door. The door, if you can see, it actually is partially within an area that would have had an original window opening. So it was an add-on feature. So that window opening will be preserved. So there'll be some blocking and then a coating applied so you don't see where that original door was placed. The original window will be put back into that area. So you'll essentially never know that there was a door there. So that's one of the proposals, is just to remove that opening that exists currently. It is a stucco portion of the building, which means there's a coating and it's painted, so it will be not visible once the work is done. Other doorway alterations occur on the west elevation. So this is the broad Albany side of the building. It's between the rear of the main structure and the one-story addition. There's two doorways. One is kind of obscured from the street. You really can't see it well. The other one you can. So on the right-hand side of the PowerPoint, you can see the circle, which indicates where those doorways are. One's a hollow, one's a wood. What's proposed there is a full light door. It just means it has a full glass pane in there to, again, let natural light into what will be living quarters of the building. And information about the replacement doors are included in the proposal. And let's see, moving on to the next slide, there is a door on the east elevation of the main building. It's kind of located where the fire escape stairs of the escape that's staying is located. That door is no longer necessary. So we don't want to hide where that door was because it was a feature. So what's proposed is just to infill that, but have it recessed slightly so you can tell that there once was a doorway there, in case it ever gets altered in the future and you want to open up that feature. Keep moving forward. The next slide just shows that fire escape that's no longer needed would be proposed to be removed from the building. Again, this is not an original feature. This was added when the remodel for the old City Hall occurred. Moving on to the next slide, mechanical units. So these interior remodel will require modern heating and air to be provided to the interior of the building. And there's usually two options for these: put them on the roof, put them on the ground, or a combination of those. This particular one, it has a full attic above the second story, and then it has kind of a hip style roof on top. Because of the height of the attic, you can stand up fully within this attic. It has quite a lot of space up there. You wouldn't be able to run mechanical equipment and set it on the upper roof of the main building. On ground level, it's a pretty compact site. So what you have around it is two public right-of-ways, including sidewalks. You have a parking lot on the east, and you have an alley right off the back. So there's not a lot of ground space to ground mount mechanical equipment. So what's proposed is adding them to the one-story rear addition. That will partially obscure them from the public right-of-way, so you wouldn't readily see them from the street. And the proposal is to have them unscreened. The reason behind this is there's only a couple ways that you can screen these types of features. You can create something that would not have existed on that roof. So you could create a false top to it that really wouldn't be fitting of the period that was built in. Or you can put a metal screen. The thought is that the metal screen would draw more attention than it would just having mechanical equipment set back as far as it can from the roof edge. Second to last slide, so almost done here. ADA accessibility improvements. So the only ADA access to the building currently, because of how it sits with grade, is a ramp off the rear one story. When it was built, codes have changed since that time, so the ramp does not meet current standards. The proposal is to remove that, regrade it so it meets the current ADA accessibility standards, put new metal black tubing handrail there that also meets current code in terms of height and spacing for railings, and then also put a metal roof covering over the entrance door. so that when that mechanical door is operating, that post can be protected from the rain. Included in the proposal shows how those materials will be attached to it. And again, this is off the rear one-story addition. The very last slide. So since the proposal has been submitted, we're still doing architectural plans for the interior of the building. 2 items were noticed that were lacking in the application that we wanted to include. One of those will need some sort of ventilation to the basement of the building. So you're seeing on the PDF screen in front of you on the left hand shows a ventilation. It's kind of like a metal screen of sorts. This would be proposed to be placed in the rear basement window of one of the windows, so one that you wouldn't see from the public street, to allow airflow to occur to the bottom level of the building. And then included on the picture on the right just shows a red box with kind of an arrow pointing to it on the one-story addition. This is the location of where we think electrical metal box would be placed on the building. So we didn't want to place it on the main building. This would be the one-story addition. And these typically do have to be building mounted, so they would have to be attached somewhere. I thought this would be the least visible place for the structure. So with that lengthy presentation, I'll conclude, but hand it over if anyone had questions about the items that we didn't cover. So doors, ADA, accessibility, mechanical units, or anything that we might have missed earlier.
So I had a question about the doors. There's 2 doors that are being removed. One on the east side and one on the west side. Is that correct?
There would be 3 doors in total being removed. So one is on the east, right near the fire escape, in an area that would no longer need to be accessed by a doorway in that location. The other 2 are off the west elevation of the main building between the one-story addition.
Well, the one's being removed and the other one's being replaced. Is that correct? Where that circle is? On the upper right?
So both of those doors would be removed and replaced.
Oh, so there'll still be doors there.
There'll still be doors there. Yeah, the proposal is to have them with a full light or full glass pane. Again, to let natural light in there where we can.
Okay. Do you know when the existing doors, when they were installed, what the age of those doors is?
Those are believed to be installed in the 60s.
From the 60s. Okay.
One's hollow and the other one is wood, but it's not original to the building.
Okay.
The doorway openings are believed to be original, though.
Okay. And then it says removal of the concrete stairs in the keynote legend of the Veritone elevation drawing, 226. But it looks like from the photo there, the concrete stairs have already been removed. Were those stairs original to the building?
Those were not. So those, I believe, were installed when there was a public restroom. So I believe those were CMU blocking that were there in that area.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Let's start on this side of the room this time. Richard? Mason?
Question about the lighting. And I'm not sure if you'll know the answer to this, but so I did a little bit of research, architecture in the night, and it has a place. Do you think that this building would be just a glowing cube at night, or with the way the lighting is set up, would one see angles and kind of shadows that really enhance the historic nature of the building at night?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked the question. There's been a lot of thought that has gone into the lighting. So many of the lights are just a real light illumination just to highlight architectural features. So a lot will not have a lot of function other than just to highlight the building. Ground mounted, again, they'll be directed towards the building. Those will not be bright. They will not be left on all night because those will be shining in residences' windows. So those will be decreased in their the lumens at night. So those would not be the security lighting. So on the front main staircase, those are intended for security. And some of the mounted lighting by doorways will also provide function of being able to see into main entrances.
Quick follow-up. With the LED lightings on top, could those change in color?
Those could change in color.
It could?
Yeah, yeah.
Bill?
Well, it's nice that we're finally getting around to restoring this building. It's a great building for downtown, one of the most important buildings down there. And we do appreciate all your work, and the fact that we're sort of asking a lot of questions is that we very much want to make sure it's done right. Having looked at the building before, I'm gratified that you're taking on the restoration of the wood windows in there. That's a lot of work, and I really appreciate the fact that you're not asking to replace more windows. And I have a lot of other questions, but this is all you're asking us to look at. So thank you for your work and for your explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just add that I'm the face, but I will pass that along.
I just want to say thanks for putting up with all the questions.
I appreciate the questions. It's nice to know that you've really taken your time to look at it.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
I
your
think
time.
at this point, we'll move on to public testimony. Nothing online, nothing in the room. Okay.
Developments online.
No rebuttal, I assume. Does any staff member wish to respond to any testimony presented?
Nothing additional at this time, no.
Does anyone have any procedural questions they would like to raise at this time? Cameron? Okay, I declare this public hearing closed at 7:01. Does the commission wish to deliberate on this case?
Yes.
Not. Please deliberate.
So, I mean, as people noted, this building was a hot mess as it came from the city of Albany. I see a lot of good things in this application. There's a lot of positive improvements, a lot of uncovering of windows. It looks like most of the basement windows weren't original. There may be 2 that were original, and that's not real certain. I didn't really get a grasp of whether the 2 wooden windows were actually historic or not that are left. And I don't know, if they're beyond repair or not on those. Really, my only big concern at this point would be the one window in the back, the one tall window in the back that spans the 2 stories. My concern there is that there used to be 5 back there, and this would be the only one left that shows all 5 because there's the addition in the back that the city put back there that, permanently covers up most of the other 4. Now, the tops of those 4 are going to be restored, which is a good thing. I just have a concern about the changing and partial covering of the one window we have, the one full heights window we have in the back. Other than that, I think the positives in this application outweigh the negatives by quite a bit.
I agree with what Cameron was saying. I'm just struggling a little bit with how we get around the cost prohibitive aspect of the finding that we have to make. It's a finding of fact. There was a comment made that it's cost prohibitive to restore them, but there's not been any evidence provided as part of the hearing. And I mean, staff even raised the issue in the staff report that there wasn't any information provided on that aspect of the finding. I think the project is great. I'm glad it's going forward at this point. I appreciate, all the hoops you're jumping through. You've got city, county, state, federal review processes. So I mean, I'm just wondering how we address that, how we make that finding. I mean, we have some innate knowledge of the cost of restoring historic aspects and windows, and clearly there's a lot, and the cost would be high, but I think this is maybe something that we need to address in the municipal code in the update as well, just how we make this finding a fact. I don't want to hold up the project and make them come back.
I think
Oh, I haven't. So I agree with Cameron as well, that that back window of the 5 that are across there is the only one left that, it really is an important window, but it is on the alley. And I think that's the only window that the argument is being made that it might be cost prohibitive. I think the ground floor windows were all replaced in the 60s, so I don't think they're making the argument that those are cost prohibitive. They're trying to return them to a more original state. So it's really just that back window that is sort of still in my mind. And because there are 2 floors and you do have to seal that space behind the window, it becomes a fire and life safety issue, which I would guess legally trumps any concern I would have. But I'm disappointed that that window cannot be restored because it is the only one left. And those are amazing windows. If you haven't had a chance to go see it, it's something to look at. They're beautiful, 2-story tall, gorgeous windows.
Kathy, is it just that window that you are concerned with?
I'm just concerned with us making the finding of fact at a public hearing, and being able to say that we had information that would allow us to make that finding. We sent away a homeowner for redwood shingles, not redwood, cedar shingles, wrong state, sorry. And to bring back information on costs. This is a completely different kind of project because the costs are, I don't know how you, I don't know.
Sure, I understand
And
what you're
the
saying.
fire life, that wasn't helpful. Thanks, Bill, but that wasn't, that didn't address the finding.
So if they're gone through, I'm assuming it's out of the Seattle office, that they're working with a Parks and Recreation's facilitator.
Do they have a finding that requires a finding of
I don't
economic
know.
feasibility? Okay, that's what I'm trying to address.
All I know is that I've done several of those, is that every single window, every single historic element is detailed and very carefully decided with that arbiter, and it takes a long time. So I do assume that that's been looked at by the national parks and that they came up with this decision. But I didn't see enough information to know that either.
No.
I mean, that's the part I struggle with is, we can make assumptions, but ultimately we have to make a decision based on the evidence that is provided to us against, Chapter 7 code, not other codes, but as it applies to Chapter 7. And I still struggle with this one window as it applies to 7.200. I just don't see how it meets the criteria based on the evidence we currently have.
I agree that it's a recurring problem, the sort of costs or whatever. And I wish we could come to some particular case. A good faith effort has been made to deal with problem, and it's probably not worthwhile to solve things for this. I think it is significant. I agree with Cameron that the windows are kind of the striking feature of the building. On the other hand, the one that we're discussing is not apparent to viewers, and there is at least a representation left on the alley. Had been there. So in this case, I'm disposed to let things go with the evidence that we have at hand. But I don't like to see this keep coming back at us.
I agree.
That's cheating. So my understanding, and I realize this may not be the correct interpretation, but the quarrel the project managers have with this window is not necessarily that it is cost prohibitive. It is because of level 2 and where it intersects with this window opening. Given that they are willing to and actively saving and restoring the other original windows, I think we can safely assume, but I think we can safely assume that if there was a way to make that window workable with the 2-level split, that they would have chosen to do so. And they are not the ones who put the floor there. It is the floor already was there. It would be different if they were changing the whole use of the back, but that has already been done, as I understand it. It appears to be the best solution given that split.
I think that was a great summation, Chad. I feel exactly the same way. We didn't exactly, I mean, it's a beautiful window. I love it. There is that floor in there, and I assume that this must have been something that their team discussed extensively, and while not perfect, it's probably the best solution. I don't know.
I think listening to all the discussion, the fact that there's so much oversight on this and so much review that's required, that in itself could be cost prohibitive if we're talking about making changes to something that's already been approved or requiring them to go back, as opposed to the materials themselves. In terms of delays on the project, I mean, I'm trying to stretch this as far as I can, but there is cost to project delays, and so I think that that I could agree with that getting there that way. But we have to do something about this.
I can't think of, I'm racking my brain trying to think of projects where this has occurred, that there was a effective solution to address this. I have seen similar things, but the second level was always inset quite a ways from the exterior of the building. I think we've all seen windows where there has been earthquake retrofit. You were wise to get that water ahead of the meeting. Earthquake retrofit, and when they have gone into an industrial building and built out lofts and things like that, when that second level is inset in a little bit, sometimes the windows remain, but you see just structure inside. But I can't think of how to do this in this situation, although I am open to hearing if there are commissioners that have any input
Well, Chad, the point you bring up, that they're certainly not reluctant to restore all the existing windows. It's not that they suddenly don't like this window, because I have no idea how many windows are on that building, but it's probably 50, 100, I don't know. There's a lot of windows there that they are restoring. So it would seem unusual that they would just not want to restore this one if there weren't extenuating circumstances. So it's too bad. On big projects like that, you always end up facing difficult dilemmas somewhere or another. And I haven't weighed in on the doors. The doors are, I think, a pretty good solution. Those were added at the time of the 60s remodel, and they're keeping ones they need to. And I mean, sometimes you just have to be practical.
Any further deliberation?
I can make a motion if you're ready. I move to approve the exterior alterations and use of substitute materials, including conditions of approval as noted in the staff report for application planning file number HI 1824. This motion is based on the findings and conclusions in the September 25th, 2024 staff report and findings in support of the application made by the Landmarks Commission during deliberations on this matter.
I second the motion.
All those in, do we need to name roll call? No. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right. Decisions of the Landmarks Commission may be appealed to the City Council within 10 days of the date the notice of decision is mailed. All right, business from the commission. Let's start on this side. We have
the Tribal Histories book back if anybody wants to borrow it. Yes, we'll pass it that way. Whoever wants to borrow it, that's fine. And I did see on social media that the author is giving, it's like a workshop later this month at the community college that I can't say the name. I don't know how to say the name. Chemeketa. And it sounds really interesting. I was trying to find it, but I couldn't find it. It's talking a lot about land uses and actually restoration using indigenous knowledge, which I think is an amazing way to approach restoration, especially in this landscape environment. So it's just additional information.
very good.
This is great. Where can we purchase?
Amazon, or from him directly. Sure, take a picture of the book and then.
You should be able to search his name and find his website. He has a press. It might be on the author page in the back too.
I've met Jeff Bezos. We don't want to give him more money.
I will. Oh, did you have anything for business?
There's a lot of things missing from that building that I wish were there. Brass rotating doors. A lot of beautiful things missing.
So if I could, I would like to say something about the NETL campus and Building 2. I talked to Keith Losi from the museum. I would say that he's got a lot on his plate, and the museum in general has a lot going on. So I sensed some caution in his tone about what they would be able to do cooperatively with us, or I mentioned to him some of the things that we asked for in the letter, and that we were hoping that maybe any artifacts could be funneled his way. And he did express that they have a lot of inventory right now. And I told him, we are hoping that that would include some funding to care for those items, but I still feel like there was some some caution in his voice, but he didn't say, no, we're not interested. Do we have any other follow-up on building 2 staff?
I checked fairly recently. I think they're still in the period where they are kind of assessing the comments, writing the final EA, the environmental assessment for it. And then we should be basically contacted as we know more. We did request that interested parties role, so we should be included in the conversation moving forward. As far as artifacts and like maybe a traveling exhibit goes, I think we've got a couple more options if we want to explore those. I think basically hold off until we really have an idea of where things are going from here, but I think there are several directions we could go. I mean, I'm thinking Oregon Historic Society could maybe put on a traveling exhibit. There's the repository down in Eugene at the U of O campus. That's the actual official artifact repository for the state of Oregon. So that's where all things kind of go after a dig, things like that. So even though the Lynn County Historical Society may or may not have the capacity for it, I still think there's some options. But before we go down that road, we'll probably just want to get a feel for what's happening with the building.
Yeah, that was my take. We need a clear picture of what they're willing to do with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we can find out if that's compatible with the museum or if maybe there is another partner out there. And perhaps there's a federal partner that would be interested in taking this under their wing, but let's see where we land.
Mm-hmm.
Mason, any business? Richard? No?
Love and life.
No. Good. Staff updates.
You got one more.
Oh, sorry, Cameron.
I don't have
If you
anything,
don't show up, you don't get a say.
right?
We're all good? Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
All right, updates from staff. So our fun times with cost prohibitive lead straight into the CLG training is November 6th. First thing in the morning, kind of before noon, there's going to be somebody coming to talk about the Secretary of Interior standards and use of substitute materials. Kind of sounds like we would all maybe benefit from that conversation. So if you're available and able to go November 6th in Dallas, that'll be a Wednesday. I believe it is free for commission members to attend. You just have to get yourself there. And you do not have to stay for the whole day. Kathy's going and she has something in the afternoon, so she's leaving at lunch. So if that's all you can swing, I still think showing up for the morning would be good. David and I are going, so I've always found the training to be really helpful.
I have a job.
I know, I'm sorry.
I know, I work. Is that okay that I'm not going to be there?
Yeah, no, you're fine. It's not a requirement. No, this is optional.
I work.
Yes.
You're choosing the children over us?
I'm sorry. They're fun. They're more fun.
I will admit I do get paid to go there, so I understand. So that is what I've got. And then kind of a learning experience. So it's been my at least first main round of the CLG grants. And I was informed that while we thought that the French drains were good to go for the funding, the state views it as it really has to be part of the actual structure. They understood our argument. They were sympathetic, but they said that it doesn't meet their guidelines. So not able to do the French drains.
So now we have money to pay everyone to go to the CLG conference. Mason, you're in.
Yeah, we could pay you a stipend. I'm actually not sure about that.
Education.
A limo too, maybe?
A limo, yeah. But Chris Gustafson has contacted me with his latest plan for additional window workshop opportunities. He's envisioning like a 5-week, once a week course to talk about different aspects of window preservation. So that's an option that we could fund. We do need to use our funding by May. That's when we have to start reporting and doing all the good housekeeping. So that is an option. And we are doing our newsletter this year. I'm committing to it.
So when we talk about vintage window restoration, are you thinking that we would be enrolled in this or that we would just support his workshop?
We would basically be a sponsor. He's envisioning also like a $200 to $300 like per person kind of payment in as well to offset the cost.
So has anyone here been to one of his little day-long conference things? Yeah, it's really worth it. And what I like about it, not only that it's a wonderful conference and you learn a lot, but it's a great way for us to head off people who just want to tear out their windows and put in vinyl. If you can get people in the district to go to one of his little seminars, they will walk out of there with a whole different attitude about wood windows and about the ability to preserve them and keep them. And that alone is worth it.
So is it a possibility that we could notify people within the district about his workshop and that we could offer a subsidy for their enrollment in the workshop?
So number one, yes, we can notify them. That's kind of what I'm envisioning the newsletter doing. So our goal is to have maybe twice a year or quarterly newsletters going out. So one of the things we could do is to basically talk about the events that we're doing that are, pro preservation, any learning opportunities. That's something we're hoping to explore with some more downtime. As for the subsidies, basically the way I'm understanding it is us pitching in. It's about $8,000 that he's asking for, which we do have in our budget. That would be the subsidy. That's what would keep it at that $200 to $300 level for doing like a class. What we could offer to do is to cover, say, 2 scholarship spots, so that if people are not able to pay that $200 to $300 to attend the class, they have that opportunity.
Gotcha. So the 2 to 3 is a discounted rate.
In a sense, yes. I mean, so he has to, insurance, number one, that was a fun fact I learned the last time we put this on. So he has to pay basically, at the time it was $1,000 extra just to cover the event that we put on 2 years ago. So he has insurance premiums that he has to pay to have the public in the building. And then there's the equipment, the time, the money, and that sort of thing. So the $8,000 basically covers the event. If we didn't put in the $8,000, you'd basically be asking people to pay like $1,000 each to cover that total cost, right? So if we sponsor it, we cover the majority of the operating costs, and then people are basically paying in and paying for, say, materials or like a bundle, the food that he provides. Maybe he sends them home with equipment. I don't know. We did that last time with like the beauty bars and stuff, but he's not asking us to provide those this time.
I'm just curious, you mentioned scholarships. Would those be, how would we go about finding I'm all about scholarships and helping out people in the community who might not have the resources. Would it be like a needs-based application? Or would it be like, how many windows have you successfully installed application?
I would imagine it's need-based, but I haven't put too much thought into it. It's just if we're concerned about the price of admission for students to take the 5-week course, if we wanted to offset that cost, the $200 to $300, we could do like a scholarship and pay for like a set amount of spots. And maybe those people don't have to pay that cost. So if that's something we wanted to do, that's something we could explore, is like how to offset that cost so it's not as high.
Does he offer like a Cliff Notes version where we would pay him for his time to present information on wood windows and the importance and all of that? Maybe something more like where all the historic owners could come to meet for free, but we would pay his time to give a couple hours after an afternoon, or?
Yeah, we could ask him to do something like that. I'm sure he would be open to it. He loves talking to people about wood windows. I know that many moons ago, Anne, who had this job, several planners before me, would actually take a wood window to the farmer's market and kind of demonstrate how to do basic fixes.
Oh.
We could potentially ask him to do that like next year for spring market. We're running out of good weather for fall market. So there's a number of options.
It'd just be nice to get some information out to everyone
Yep.
as much as, yeah.
Yeah, so this one is definitely more of an intensive course for people who actually want to do the work themselves, but we definitely have opportunities to do kind of a more intro basics as well. And he is based here in Albany, so that is a wonderful resource as well.
Anything else?
Oh, our next meeting is November 7th. I just had to point that out. We had to move it to a Thursday. So it's going to be a little weird. Don't come here on Wednesday. City Council kicked us out.
All right.
So I think that's all I've got. David, did you have anything?
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, we're going to be scheduling at least 3 or 4 focus group meetings during the month of November. And Alyssa will send out a doodle poll for the people that have agreed to participate in this. Right now, we've got about 15 people that were agreeable to participate. She will also send out a doodle poll to find out which one of you would be available to come to those specific dates. And I've already given Alyssa the list of dates and times that these could take place. So I'd really like to have at least one of you at each of the focus group meetings.
David, how many focus, is there 4 of them?
3 or 4.
3 or 4, okay.
It's kind of right on the fence of whether or not, we'll probably end up picking the top 3 or 4 where people are aligned with the date and time. We had originally thought about having 5, but we may not need to have all 5.
Well, already the work that's been done with the survey and everything is great, and this is a way to really make it count.
Yeah, we're going to ask that question about cost effectiveness too. I think that that's a really big issue that it's been really hard for us to get around.
Mhm.
And it seems to come up at almost every case that we get.
We had to define it in our code in San Diego.
Did you?
Yeah, because we got sued every other day. So, yeah. And so, fortunately, there was a state law that talked about financial feasibility. So we stole that. But we actually had to put the definition.
Love to see what it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we get that definition?
Yeah. It seems so
Sure.
difficult.
Maybe it's online,
Yes, it is.
writing down notes. That's all I had.
All right. Well, very good. At this point, as Alyssa said, the next meeting date is November 7th. That is on a Thursday. I will adjourn this meeting at 7:32. Thank you.